Hello, my name is Ryan Gottfredson, and I'm a leadership professor at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm also a leadership consultant. I'm excited to talk to you about enhancing your leadership, becoming someone that others want to follow. I hope you're ready to invest in yourself and become a better person and a better leader. In fact, I want to start with a bold promise here. This bold promise is that your life will be different after going through this training. The reason why I say that is because you're going to see yourself and your life with new lenses. So to start, what is leadership and what is a leader? Well, there's many different definitions out there, and I'm going to provide you with the definition that I like the best. I'm going to give you some rationale for why I like these definitions the best. The definition of leadership that I like is the use of power and influence to direct others toward goal achievement. This means that a leader is someone that uses power and influence to direct others toward goal achievement. A few reasons why I like this definition is because it suggests that leadership is not based upon position, but rather it's based on one's influence. This suggests that one can be in a leadership position but not be able to influence others toward goal achievement. Additionally, it suggests that one does not need to be in a leadership position to be able to influence others toward goal achievement. Regardless of what our position is, we can be a positive influence in the lives of others. But one of the things that we need to recognize is that there's different forms of power and influence. So here on this slide, I present two leaders, Adolf Hitler and Martin Luther King Jr. It's pretty obvious that Adolf Hitler had a rather unhealthy influence on others, whereas Martin Luther King had a largely positive influence on others. But yet both had a high degree of influence. So what's the difference between these two people? Well, it's in the type of power and influence that they led with. So when it comes to Adolf Hitler, the type of power that he led with was what's called organizational power. It's power derived by the position of their authority. And it's power derived by their ability to wield rewards and punishments in order to get others to do what they want them to do. Thus, when somebody leads with organizational power, followers feel compelled to follow them, largely because they're either in a position of authority or because of the rewards or punishments in which they offer. We happen to know that Adolf Hitler largely used threats of punishment to get other people to do what he wanted them to do. And the long-term impact of organizational power is that it brings others down. So there's no denying that organizational power is powerful, but when you lead with it, people feel compelled to follow, and it ultimately has a negative effect on those that they lead. But then there's people like Martin Luther King who lead with a more healthy form of power. This form of power is called personal power. When we have personal power, we are a person that other people want to follow. Thus, people are willing to follow us. And the long-term impact of people who lead with personal power is that they lift others up. As you reflect upon your experience working within organizations, which type of power is most commonly used and relied upon? Well, from my experience, organizational power is more commonly relied upon. This threat of force or wielding a position or rewards. The reason why I say that is I think it's easier to obtain organizational power. All you need to do is to be put into a position of power and influence. And also it's easier to wield. It's easy to just offer up rewards or punishments to get people to do things that you want them to do, than to actually build a relationship and become somebody that they respect to the degree that they're willing to follow them. Personal power is harder to develop. It just takes more time, and it takes becoming a person that other people want to follow. And that's not necessarily easy. So it's much easier for people to rely upon organizational power as opposed to personal power. But again, the effects of organizational power is going to be ultimately negative, whereas the effects of personal power is going to be ultimately positive. So as a whole, what this suggests to us is that if we want to become an effective leader, we need to become somebody that other people want to follow. That leads us into this question. What does it take to become someone that others want to follow? What drives this? What are the attributes that we need to develop? Well, here's a list that I compiled, and it's surely not comprehensive. In fact, we could probably put 100 different attributes in this box. But if these are the things that we need to develop in order to become an effective leader, somebody that others want to follow, then a deeper level question becomes, what drives the development of these attributes associated with effective leadership? So I want to introduce this driver of these attributes. What we're ultimately going to do is we're going to focus on 4 things that can drive dozens of attributes of effective leadership. And I don't know about you, but it's easier for me to focus on 4 things as opposed to dozens of things. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to make becoming somebody others want to follow easier than what you may have thought previously. So to introduce this driver to you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you words and pictures, and I want you to pay attention to what your first thoughts are when you read these words and see these pictures. So here we go with the first one. Challenge and failure. What are your first thoughts? Well, do you see challenge as failure more as something to avoid, or do you see it as an opportunity to learn and grow? People can see the same thing but interpret it very differently. Let's do another one. What about disagreement? What are your first thoughts here? Do you see disagreement as a threat? Or do you see disagreement as being necessary for learning? Again, seeing the same thing, but interpreting it differently. What about risk? What are your first thoughts? Do you see risk as something to avoid? Or do you recognize that rewards are not likely to come without taking risks? Finally, here's the last one. It's just a picture of a homeless person. What are your first thoughts when you see a homeless person? Do you see them as somebody that should get a job? Or perhaps do you see someone who's doing their best? Which leads you to wonder what has happened in their life that has led them to believe that living on the streets is their best course of action and the best way to live. Again, we could see the same things but interpret it very differently. So let me check in here. What we've just presented is different things that people can see, yet can be interpreted differently. So let's just say we have leader A here who see challenges and failure as something to avoid, disagreement as a threat, risk as something to avoid, and others as being objects or people that aren't trying their best. Would you rather follow someone like that or somebody more like leader B who sees challenges as failures as an opportunity to learn and grow, sees disagreement as being necessary for learning, risk as being necessary for attaining rewards, and others as people that are trying their best? What I hope you're picking up on is that our willingness to follow others is largely shaped by how they view the world around them. So what causes leaders and people to see the exact same thing but interpret it so differently? This factor is this foundational component of this pyramid, and it's ultimately the foundation of effective leadership. This factor is our mindsets. Our mindsets are the mental lenses that we use to view the world. In fact, I like to call them our mental fuel filters because every day we're bombarded by thousands, if not millions of stimuli, and it's our mindsets or these mental fuel filters that filter select information into our brain, and that information goes on to fuel our thinking, learning, and behavior, and consequently, how effective our leadership is. And our mindsets are something that we're largely not aware of. I don't know if you wear glasses, but I imagine you've worn sunglasses, and if you've worn sunglasses for an extended period of time, you lose consciousness that you're actually wearing glasses. And you lose consciousness to the idea that you're actually seeing the world in a different way than how you normally see the world. The same thing goes with our mindsets. Each of us are carrying around our own unique mindsets, and we've lost consciousness of them. We're not aware of them, yet they're shaping how we see and view the world. So I'm excited to dive into the idea of what mindsets do you have? And this is where the bold promise starts to come in, where you're going to start seeing yourself and your life with new lenses. We're going to go through a deep introspection here. We're going to look at the very foundation of who we are, which is our mindsets. And until now, you may not have received the information to diagnose and identify the mindsets that you have. But that's something I'm going to empower you with here now. So before I dive into the different types of mindsets that we need to focus on in order to be more effective leaders, let me tell you a little bit more about the power of mindsets. And to do so, I'm going to introduce you to a study. In this study, the researchers had individuals take a mindset assessment, and they divided the individuals into two groups. Those in group 1 scored low on the mindset assessment. Those that scored high were put into group 2. Then they were presented with 8 easy questions and then 4 hard questions. What the researchers wanted to see is, would these groups respond differently to failure because of their mindsets? Group 1, they were presented with 8 easy questions and 4 hard questions. What ended up happening is that they hit the hard questions and they went from being rather pleased with themselves to being rather depressed. Their thoughts quickly denigrated, and they actually gave up. They stopped applying themselves to the problems at hand. In fact, after the experiment, they asked the research participants, how many did you get right and how many did you get wrong? They all got 8 right and 4 wrong, but they remembered that they got 5 right and 6 wrong, suggested that they overemphasized their failures and underemphasized their successes. Well, group 2 responded completely differently. They hit the hard questions and they started to encourage themselves. They started to dig in more vigorously and they remained confident and optimistic. So here's 2 groups of people who are essentially the same in every way except in the mindsets that they possess. And they go through the same exact experience, but yet respond to it so differently. And this is all founded in our mindsets. So when it comes to being a leader, we're going to be put into situations that are challenging, that are difficult, that are next to failure, like this experiment. But do we have the mindset to navigate it in an effective way? Now that becomes the question. But here's the problem, is can you identify the mindsets that drive leadership effectiveness? Can you even identify any mindsets? And I think that's where the general public really struggles, is there's mindsets that are out there, but we haven't been empowered to identify the mindsets that actually drive success. So when I first started learning about mindsets, this was the question that I asked. What mindsets are going to drive my personal effectiveness and leadership effectiveness? I first went to Google, and to be quite honest with you, Google wasn't very helpful because I got a lot of vague answers. They weren't really clear. They didn't define the mindsets clearly. So my next course of action was to go into the academic literature to identify mindsets that have been rigorously studied and proven to drive positive effects. So when I dove into the literature, I first started in the management and organizational domain. That's because that's naturally where I play. But then I also went into psychology, marketing, education, and in each of these domains, I identified different mindsets that were being studied in relative isolation from each other. So I was able to identify mindsets in each of these different domains that have been researched for decades and have been proven to have a variety of positive effects. And so what I've done is I've compiled them together into a framework to help us diagnose the mindsets that we have and also the mindsets that we need to develop to ultimately become a more effective leader. So I'm going to present these mindsets to you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to present them in sets. So I'm going to give you 4 sets of mindsets. Each set ranges on a continuum from negative to positive. And of course, the more positive mindsets are the mindsets that drive leadership effectiveness. So across these 4 sets of mindsets, you possess a mindset that's going to range somewhere along this continuum. And as we go along, you're going to start to get a sense of where you might be along that continuum. So I want you to pay attention to that. But here's the 4 sets of mindsets. First, there's fixed and growth, then there's closed and open, then prevention and promotion, and inward and outward. So let me walk you through each of these. So let's start with fixed and growth mindsets. In fact, the fixed and growth mindsets were the mindsets that were studied in that experiment that I told you about earlier, where they had the 8 easy questions and the 4 hard questions. Those that were in group 1 had this more negative mindset, which is a fixed mindset, where we see ourselves and others as being unable to change our talents, abilities, and intelligence. But those in group 2 in the experiment, they had a growth mindset. They saw themselves and others as being able to change their talents, abilities, and intelligence. Research has found is roughly 50% of the population has a fixed mindset. The other half of the population has more of a growth mindset. Now, once again, what mindsets do is they lead us to see the same thing but interpret them differently. So when it comes to having a fixed mindset, their focus is on looking good and validating their talent. The reason for this is because if they are unable to change their talents, abilities, and intelligence, then it's important for them to appear as though they have those things. But those with the growth mindset, they're not necessarily concerned about how they look. They're concerned about learning and growing and performing and excelling. When people have a fixed mindset, they tend to avoid challenges and give up easily. The reason for this is because if they happen to fail and they don't believe that they can improve their talents, abilities, and intelligence, it suggests that they are a failure. They internalize this failure. But those with the growth mindset, they don't internalize failure as being a bad thing. They actually see it as opportunities to learn and grow. Thus, they embrace challenges and persist beyond failure. Those with the fixed mindset, because they see others as being unable to change, they're unlikely to invest in their people and they're unlikely to give them quality and quantity feedback. Whereas those with the growth mindset who believe that other people can change, they're more likely to invest and develop their people with high quality and high quantity feedback. Those with a fixed mindset believe that success should come naturally. This suggests that if they start in on a project and they aren't very successful very quickly, they have a tendency to think, oh, this wasn't meant to be, or this wasn't for me. Whereas those with the growth mindset, they recognize that success takes effort and that they need to invest themselves if they ultimately want to be successful. So when you consider these two mindsets, who would you rather follow? Someone with a fixed mindset who's focused on looking good, avoiding challenges, not giving high quality feedback, and believing that success should come naturally? Or would you rather follow someone with a growth mindset who's focused on learning and growing, embracing challenges, developing their people, and believing that effort is the key to success? Seems pretty clear, right? But once again, 50% of the population is more fixed, the other 50% is more growth. Ultimately, regardless of what side that we're on, we can always improve in our mindsets. Research over 30 years on growth and fixed mindsets has led experts to say cultivating a growth mindset can be the single most important thing you ever do to help you achieve success. The reason why they say this is because those with the growth mindset are willing to take on challenges. They're willing to persist when failure occurs. And those are ultimately things that successful people have to be willing to do. So maybe consider, once again, where you're at. Based upon the information presented, are you more fixed or are you more growth? Next, let's talk about closed and open mindsets. When we have a closed mindset, we're closed to the ideas and suggestions of others. When we have an open mindset, we're open to the ideas and suggestions of others. We are willing to give them adequate time and thought. Now let me ask you this question. Are you more open or closed? And before you smugly slap an open-minded sticker on your forehead, consider this. Closed-minded people would never consider that they could actually be closed-minded. In fact, their perceived open-mindedness is what's so dangerous. I look back on my life, I think back 10 years ago, if you would have asked me if I was open-minded, I would have said, certainly I'm open-minded. But now, I look back and I think, oh my goodness, I was so closed-minded. I was so much more rigid in my thinking. So this is something that's rather difficult for us to evaluate ourselves. But let me try to describe the differences between those with a closed mindset and those with an open mindset. Those with a closed mindset have a focus on being right. They want to have their ideas supported. Those with an open mindset, they're not necessarily concerned about being right. They just want to find the truth. They want to see things optimally. Those with a closed mindset have a tendency to want to give answers as opposed to ask questions. Because of that, they're rather out of touch, whereas those with an open mindset, they want to seek to understand, and particularly different people's perspectives. And so thus they seek feedback, they seek these new perspectives, whereas those with a closed mindset, they have a tendency to avoid feedback and avoid new perspectives because that may lead to questions about them being right. Ultimately, those that have a closed mindset see disagreement as a threat, and they believe that what they know is best. Those with an open mindset see disagreement as an opportunity to learn and grow, and they believe that they can be wrong. In fact, those with an extreme open mindset have an extreme fear of being wrong. Thus, they open themselves up to new and different perspectives, and they seek them out. So why is an open mindset necessary for effective leadership? Well, in my research, what I found is that when leaders are closed, to the degree that perhaps an employee comes to them with an idea and the leader just shuts it down without listening to them, well, the leaders come across as being unapproachable and off-putting. The leaders fail to seek out the perspective of others, leaders fail to learn, and their thinking and decision-making becomes a lower quality. But what if we have an open mindset? Well, research has found that leaders with an open mindset drive the number one factor that fuels high-performance teams. And this number one factor was found out by Google through several years of study, and it's psychological safety. When we have an open mindset, we create an environment where team members feel safe to express their ideas and opinions and also take risk without fear of repercussion. If employees are fearful about expressing their ideas and opinions or about taking risks, they're unlikely to put forth their best effort on the projects that are going on. So possessing an open mindset is a crucial mindset to possess as a leader because it shapes the environment in which the people they're leading operate in. Ultimately, again, we need to ask ourselves the question, who would you rather follow? Someone with an open mindset or someone with a closed mindset? I don't know about you, but my most painful work experiences in my career has been when I've been working with a closed mindset individual, where I've presented ideas and they weren't willing to hear them out. What I've learned from those experiences is that voice equals value. If our voice is something that is heard by our leaders, then we feel like we're of value to them. If leaders are unwilling to hear our voice, then we don't feel like we are of value. So once again, it's crucial for leaders to develop and possess an open mindset. The third set of mindsets here is prevention and promotion mindsets. When we have a prevention mindset, we're focused on not losing. When we have a promotion mindset, we're focused on winning and gains. To describe these two mindsets, I'm going to use a metaphor where we are a captain of a boat. If we are a captain of a boat and we have a prevention mindset, ultimately our primary focus is on ensuring that our boat doesn't sink. We want to ensure that things run smoothly. As such, we're focused on avoiding problems and also limiting risk. We're really focused on the things that are most urgent, but not necessarily what is the most important, which is getting to a destination. Ultimately, those with a prevention mindset, their primary goal is to maintain the status quo. But if we're a captain of a boat and we have a promotion mindset, our primary focus is not on avoiding sinking, it's on reaching a destination and making progress towards it. When we have that as our primary focus, we're actually going to anticipate problems. We're going to take risk because we recognize that without risk comes no rewards. Thus, captains of a boat with a promotion mindset focus on what is important, not necessarily what is urgent, and their ultimate goal here is on attainment. So when we compare and contrast these two different mindsets and these two different captains, when we look at the prevention mindset captains, what ultimately happens is that the captain gets blown about by the winds and the currents of the sea. They end up in a destination not of their proactive design. Really what they're doing here is they're doing what is easy, which is drifting. But those with the promotion mindset are willing to go against the current in order to get to a destination. They're willing to do what is rewarding. So let me ask the question I've been asking all along. Who would you rather follow? Someone with a prevention mindset or someone with a promotion mindset? Well, I don't know about you, but my experience is working with leaders that have a prevention mindset is not very inspiring. It's not very inspiring to focus on not losing. It's inspiring to focus on winning and gains, reaching a destination, making progress, attaining goals, taking risks. Those are the things that's exciting. So ultimately, leaders with a promotion mindset lead a much more inspired group than leaders with a prevention mindset. The last set of mindsets here is the difference between inward mindsets and outward mindsets. Those with an inward mindset view others as objects, whereas those with an outward mindset, they view others as people, and they value them as such. What does that mean to you? Well, to me, seeing others as objects is like you're seeing them as instruments there to do your bidding. But when you have an outward mindset, you're seeing others as people, you're seeing them as partners. So how do these different mindsets see the world differently? Well, those with an inward mindset, their primary focus is on benefiting themselves. Whereas those with an outward mindset, their focus is on benefiting the team. Those with an inward mindset see themselves as being more important than others. Those with an outward mindset see others as being valuable partners. When we have an inward mindset, we have a tendency to seek the spotlight and limit others because we want to take all the credit. Those with an outward mindset, they're willing to share the spotlight. They want to include others. Those with an inward mindset believe that others are not doing their best, whereas those with an outward mindset are much more empathetic. They believe that others are doing their best. And if they're not performing up to expectation, it's probably because of factors that are external to the individual, that maybe they don't have enough resources. Thus, a leader with an outward mindset is going to be much more empathetic and supportive of the people that they lead. So again, who would you rather follow? Someone with an inward mindset who's primarily focused on themselves, or someone with an outward mindset who's focused on ultimately benefiting those that they're leading? The answer seems pretty obvious, right? To summarize this up, who's the more effective leader? A leader that is more fixed, closed, prevention, and inward, or the leader that's more growth, open, promotion, and outward? I don't know about you, but when I say the words fixed, closed, prevention, and inward, I kind of get the impression of a raisin getting shriveled up. But when I say the words growth, open, promotion, and outward, I think of this flower blooming. So think about the type of leader you are. Also think about the type of leader that you want to be. That's the next step here. So we need to start charting the course. Where are we currently at and where do we need to go to become a more effective leader? So the question first becomes, what mindset do you have? Well, let me offer you up a free personal mindset assessment. This assessment comes with an overview of these mindsets, your mindset scores, and direction on how to improve each of these mindsets. If you want to take this personal mindset assessment, text my mindsets to 44222, or there might be a link below this video. So ultimately, how do we improve our mindsets in order to improve the attributes of effective leadership and ultimately become an effective leader? Well, let me give you some suggestions here, some of which we've already hinted at. First, we need to have the ability to identify our mindsets. We need to be able to put a label on them which objectifies them. We need to get something to focus on, and having a label helps. Up until now, it's my guess that you haven't been able to identify mindsets to any certain specific degree. But now we've got labels. Now we've got definitions. This allows us to focus and hone in on our mindsets in order to ultimately improve them. Second, we need to identify where you're currently at. We need to go through this awakening process. So I hope that this has been part of that process for you, awakening to where you are along each of these mindset continuums. The self-mindset assessment is going to help you with that. And also, I hope that what we've done is we've helped you identify your destination. So by identifying where we're currently at, as well as identifying our destination, we can now chart our course to becoming a more effective leader. Let's go back to the original promise at the beginning of this training, which was your life will be different after this, that you will see yourself differently. I hope that this deeper level introspection, getting to know your mindsets, now helps you see yourself a little bit more clearly and to become more aware of yourselves. One of the things about the most effective leaders that I know is that they're extremely self-aware. So I hope that this mindset framework helps you to become more aware of yourself. I hope that you now see yourself differently. I hope that you've awakened to a deeper level of yourself. And I hope you feel enabled and empowered to improve the effectiveness of your leadership. So now it's up to you. It's up to you to become a true leader, a positive influence in the lives of others, and someone that others want to follow. And remember, it all starts with your mindsets. So once again, if you want to become more aware of your mindsets, here's your opportunity to take this free personal mindset assessment. Additionally, if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to reach out to me via my email or through my website. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.